Hello, guys. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Control or Be Controlled podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And as always, I remain your host, Darlington. This guest is Jordan Mendoza. Jordan, welcome to Control or Be Controlled.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
All right, so Jordan, I would like you to introduce yourself to my audience.
Yeah, so I'm Jordan Mendoza. I'm the founder and CEO of a few different companies. My first company I launched was Blaze Your Own Trail Consulting. I also have a company called Blaze Your Own Trail Group Coaching. It's live coaching plus a platform for entrepreneurial tools. I'm a co-founder of Calendar PA, which is a scheduling software for small, medium, and large businesses. Also a co-founder of Wasso, which is a company, a prop tech company based in La Louvière, Belgium, and also the co-founder of Blazing 3D Print. So I do a lot in the entrepreneurial space, based here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I live with my wife and 6 children. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Jordan. 6 children. Okay, you have 6 beautiful children. Nice to hear that. I don't know. I would like to add a little bit to that introduction as well. So, he's the founder and CEO of Blaze Your Own Trail Consulting LLC, where he helps service providers grow their business through strategic marketing, sales, and leadership consulting. So, after overcoming significant adversity, Jordan built a thriving business through a LinkedIn audience of more than 64,000 followers, launched a top 1.5% ranked podcast, and now Jordan helps entrepreneurs, service providers, and podcast hosts grow their brands, increase revenue, and create lasting impact. Jordan, welcome to the show. Okay, so
hey, thanks so much for the additional intro there. I'm excited to be here, Darlington.
Okay, so you have overcome significant adversity in your life. I don't know if you can talk about the adversity a little. Then tell us what mindsets helped you to move forward when giving up would have been easier for you at that point.
Yeah, I can definitely dive into some pivotal moments. I think all of us in life are faced with these moments in time that are pivotal. It basically is kind of like a crossroads where we get to make a decision that determines the trajectory of our life, in that particular moment in time. And, for me, before I turned, 22 years old, I had faced so many different adversities, and not all of them were the same. Some were, physical adversity. Some were racial adversity. Some were financial adversity. Some were based on communication. And so that really stirred in me to write a book last year. Actually, we're celebrating our first anniversary of the book. It's called The Life-Changing Power of Adversity, because I truly believe that if we're willing to dive in and extract the lessons, adversity can be life-changing, not in a negative context, but in a positive context. And it all depends on what lens are we looking through. So I'm definitely going to share a few pivotal moments, in my life that I had to personally deal with and overcome each of them, and then one lesson from each, if that would work for you, Darlington.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. So for the first one, we're going to dive all the way back to 4th grade. So I was in 4th grade, grew up in North Portland, Oregon, and we had this big park that was not too far from our elementary school called Pier Park. And on the last day of 4th grade, we had this big picnic at the park. And so if you can imagine just, kids everywhere, teachers, and there's just all kinds of sports and activities going on. There's tetherball, there's baseball, there's kickball, all kinds of stuff happening. And it was just a fun day. And I decided I was going to play baseball, and I picked up the bat and I swung it. And when I swung the bat, I spun around in a circle. The bat flew under this tree, and I ran over to go get the bat. And when I stood up, Darlington, there was literally a beehive on my head. And so I start running. There's bees chasing me. Bees are stinging me. kids are running away from me, teachers are running away from me, and I start running towards these picnic tables, and finally some good teachers grabbed these big coolers and poured water on top of me, and were starting to like individually like smack and pick all these bees off of me. But that day I got stung 53 times. And so, if I was allergic, obviously we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I'm grateful that I'm not allergic to bees. But yeah, 53 bee stings in one kind of sitting was pretty wild. And one lesson that I learned is that everyone reacts differently in chaotic situations. That was really something that I took away from that, because again, there were students running, there were certain teachers were running, and then, there's a certain type of personality, a person that decides to jump in and intervene and help. So that's, kind of pivotal moment in story number one in fourth grade. If you fast forward a handful of years later, I was in seventh grade, we had just moved 2 towns away. So we moved from North Portland all the way to a couple towns away, and I had to take 2 public buses just to get to my middle school. And so every day I would take one bus, it stopped at a 7-Eleven. I would wait there for about a half hour, and then I would get on the next bus, and then that bus would take me a block from where my middle school was. And so every time I would be there, I would be playing Mortal Kombat 2 at the arcade machine. And one day I was just doing my normal thing, and as I'm playing, I hear a man's voice yell, "Hey, Daniel." And I'm Jordan, so I just kept playing the game, and before I knew it, my body was lifted in the air. I was thrown into the Terminator 2 pinball machine. The gun was the trigger that shoots the balls. Thrown on the ground, punched multiple times in my side of my ribs, handcuffed, and then taken and put into a police car. So as you can imagine, at 12 years old, I was crying, I was screaming, I was like, what is happening? I was so confused. And as I was sitting in the back of that police car, I remembered my mom was on me the night before. So I knew I did my homework, and I knew that it had my actual name on it. So I pleaded and begged with the police officer, and I said, "Hey, listen, my name is not Daniel, it's Jordan Mendoza. And if you look in my jacket pocket, you'll see my homework has my name on it." And for whatever reason, the officer believed me. He reached into that pocket, Darlington, and he read that piece of paper. It said Jordan Mendoza, and that's when he knew that he screwed up. So the thing was, they were looking for a Hispanic runaway. Well, first mistake, I'm not Hispanic. Second mistake, I wasn't a runaway. I was just there waiting for the bus. And the third thing they did was they used police brutality, excessive force. They shouldn't have hit me. Fourth thing they did was they racially profiled me based on my skin color, that I was a race that I wasn't. So there were so many different things that occurred, but at the end of the day, the officers ended up losing their jobs, and I ended up moving on with my life. But there was a time there, because we were really poor, and my mom looked at this and she said, "Man, we're going to get a lot of money for this. We're going to sue the city. We're going to do this and that." And I was like, "Listen, I just want to move on. They definitely don't need to be police officers. They don't need to have their job. But I just want to move on." And I had to go through, seeing psychiatrists and this whole process and the courts and all this stuff. And yeah, they lost their jobs, and I moved on. But one lesson I gained from that experience is that even people that are sworn to protect and serve, even people that have, this high level of authority, and, they still make mistakes. People are people. I don't know what was happening before they arrived at the scene, or how many people they were going after, or how late they were working, or I don't know I don't have any of that context. And so but I just understand now, and I understood at 12 years old that people make mistakes, and I didn't need to have something long and drawn out for me. I just needed to kind of move on. And then the third moment, if you fast forward just 7 short years later, at 19 years old, so from about 12 to 19, I was in sales after high school. I got a sales job. I traveled in multiple different states around the country, and we had this opportunity to open an office in New Jersey from California to New Jersey. And so a ton of us were driving in multiple vehicles, and we were in the state of Wyoming. It was about 4 a.m, and in the vehicle that I was in, it was a truck, and I was sitting in the back seat. There were 2 other passengers next to the driver. It's kind of like a cab situation. And the driver, I was already asleep at this time, but he falls asleep at the wheel. And when he fell asleep, Darlington, instead of hitting the brakes, he woke up and he overcorrected the wheel and he hit the gas. And so we started sliding in this truck at over 70 miles an hour. The truck flips multiple times and then comes to a stop. And at that moment, I, of course, woke up as the truck's sliding. And so I get out of the vehicle. The other 2 passengers get out, and the area where our buddy Jeremy, the driver, was supposed to be, the windshield was completely gone, and he was gone. And he was ejected about 25 yards from where the truck landed. And when we eventually found him, he stood up like a zombie, screamed for a second, and then he landed back up, fell on the ground. And that's when we knew that he was seriously injured. And luckily for us, there were some off-duty EMTs that just happened to be coming from Colorado from a conference, and they arrived at the scene pretty quickly. They were able to call a helicopter. My buddy got life-flighted to Casper, Wyoming, and that was in the moment when I started to smell a very strong iron smell, and I didn't realize it was me, but I reached down on my right leg because I felt something wet, and my hand went in about a fist deep. I had a cut. A 12-inch cut on my right leg. I also had an 8-inch cut on my left leg. I had to have laser surgery on the right leg, 52 staples between my 2 legs, 2 on my wrist, and I lost a ton of blood. And so I had to be rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, prepped for surgery, and I woke up the next morning in a hospital bed. What did I learn about this situation? Well, it was a long recovery. As you can imagine, you get in a horrific accident like that. I mean, I was told I may not be able to walk again. And so I was really, really motivated. Well, I spent the handful of weeks in the hospital as I went through, this physical therapy to try to, get back range of motion and figure this thing out again. And by the grace of God, I recovered fully in 6 months. And you fast forward almost 30 years later, at 45 years old, I can still run and jump and swim, and I have no ailments from that accident at all. So what did I gain from that? It's that, God will never put us through something that we can't handle. And he will always allow us to dive into, a tumultuous or a traumatic situation and use it for our testimony to help other people. So I hope that your audience gets value in seeing that even though there are terrible things that can happen to people, there are hard things that people go through, it doesn't mean it's the end. In fact, if you can extract the lessons, it can be the beginning of something great for you to be able to help others with.
Okay, thank you so much, Jordan. Thank you for breaking that down. That was wonderful to listen to. And I'm sure my audience can pick 1 or 2 from that and run with it. So, you have produced more than 2,300 podcast episodes, right?
No, I've recorded over 200 episodes, and we've released 180 something episodes, and then I've guested on probably a couple hundred shows as a guest.
Okay, so okay, thank you so much for that. So, talking about Launch the Blaze, your own trade podcast. What has hosting taught you about business and leadership?
Yeah, what a great question. When you're hosting a show, as you know, Darlington, you've got to be a great listener, and you've got to care. You got to really be interested in the person that's on the other side of that microphone or on the other side of that video, because if you truly do care, then the conversation is going to be so much better. It's going to be a lot more authentic. It's going to be more organic. And that's what the audience wants. Audiences want to feel like they're a part of this conversation. So that's really the feedback or advice that I would even give people, as you're hosting, and really, really invest in getting to know that person that's on the other end, because you can build some really, really great friendships. I have so many friendships that I've built over the last 6+ years, being in this space. And there's so many opportunities that could come from that, partnerships, collaborations. You just never know where, a 20 to 40-minute conversation can lead you to.
All right. So, Jordan, you believe podcasting as a host is a way of networking as well?
100%. Yeah. Networking for sure. Building actual relationships where, you don't just meet virtually, but you might meet that person in real life, at an event or a conference or something like that. And yeah, podcasting, yes, there's the virtual side, but there's also in-person opportunities. And those, as you know, when you get to meet somebody and break bread and shake their hand, it's a little bit different of an experience.
Okay, hopefully I can be able to network with you just with this episode as well. And I noticed that you have been able to build an audience of 64,000 people on LinkedIn. And I also would like to have that type of audience. So maybe this might be a time for me to also network with you and see a way I can grow my LinkedIn followers. So tell us, what are the biggest mistakes people make when they try to grow on that platform? I mean, you're able to grow your own to 64,000. You should know a lot of mistakes that people make.
Yeah. Great question. So the mistake is not understanding how important that your profile is from an optimization standpoint. And this is something that I'm sure my clients get tired of me talking about. My coaching students get tired of me, but if your foundations are not dialed in, if you build a house, right? If you don't have strong foundations, then at some point that house is going to start to fall apart, and you're going to have cracks sooner than you probably could have. And it's the same thing on social media. The most important piece is that your profile is dialed in. So if we're thinking about the context of LinkedIn, you have to have a banner image, that's contextual to your business and brand. You need to have good headline text, which is the text that's right under your name, that tells people who you are, what you do, who you serve, that's got good call to actions as well. You need to make sure that you're featuring important things in your featured section. You need to make sure that your about summary is written from a storytelling perspective instead of looking like a resume. You need to make sure that all your experience section is beefed up and you've got all the context in there and you're pointing to relevant links and you're adding relevant images. You really, really need to take inventory from top to bottom of your profile and ask yourself, is this really dialed in? Is this a place that I want to start sending traffic to? Because that's what happens is most people forget about their profile and they start going and putting out a bunch of content and they wonder why it doesn't convert into traffic or clients. It's because their profile's not set up correctly or their profile's not dialed in correctly. So that is my biggest advice. And, because again, I was the guy that didn't have an optimized or dialed in profile. And once I dialed it in and once I started to implement a lot of these things, that's when I started to see positive changes and positive shifts in audience growth. Okay. But that's kind of phase one, right? Is optimization. Phase two is, do you have a relevant content strategy that is speaking to your ideal audience, where you're helping them, giving them tips, encouraging them, things like that. And then from there, it's, your growth strategy. How are you contextually and strategically growing your audience with the people that you want in your audience, the people that you can either help or that can help you, and so on and so forth. And then from there, you need a conversion strategy. Now that you've grown the audience with maybe your ideal client, how are you now taking the online, offline, building contextual relationships and turning that into potential business? And so that is really, yes, it starts with optimization, but it doesn't end there. And so that's why for me, it's important. Like when I'm coaching people, I need to take them from the beginning of a process, which always starts at optimization, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, doesn't really matter. You always have to make sure your profile is dialed in and optimized. And so for some of your listeners, this is a call to action for you to go and look at all your profiles and make sure is my photo the same? Because if it isn't, it should be. It should be cohesive. Does my tagline look the same? Am I pointing people to the same website because I want all the traffic to go to that same place? So, take an inventory, go do an audit of your platforms, and then if you get to a place and you're like, man, I just don't know what I'm doing. Obviously, the internet is the first place to go. You go to Google or YouTube and you type in what you're looking for. But at the end of this episode, I'm going to share with you all a website where you can come learn every week completely free. I do weekly calls 4 times a month, and it's on all this stuff that you're probably looking to grow in, whether that's LinkedIn or podcasting or growing a business and so on and so forth. So thanks for the great question, Darlington.
Thank you so much. I really believe I can be able to grow because I think I'm not sure I have up to 500 followers on LinkedIn. And I want to scale to 6,400, just like you. So, tell us, why did you decide to become an entrepreneur?
If I'm being honest, I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole life. When you don't have a lot of resources, you have to be resilient. You got to think on your feet. You got to figure out ways to get things. So I can remember at 5 years old going door to door and just asking people for their cans, and some people would shut the door in my face. Some people would give me a can. Some people would yell at me or whatever. But, I was bold enough to go and basically ask for something. And that's really, what entrepreneurship is all about is, you're building something, but then you're asking people to trust that you can help them with that something. And so doing that at an early age and then getting into sales at a very early age, at 14 years old, getting my first sales job and doing door-to-door sales. And I've tried so many businesses. And that's the thing that I want to encourage your audience with is I've had so many more businesses fail than have actually succeeded. Yeah, I've got 4 or 5 now that are doing well and that are growing, but you didn't see the other probably 36 that didn't ever see the light of day or didn't produce any revenue. But all of those reps that I got to put in the failure have helped me lead to what works and what doesn't work and have gotten to success.
Okay. So you're saying that life forced you into becoming an entrepreneur.
Oh, say that one more time.
So you are saying that life forced you into becoming an entrepreneur.
Life forced me? No, I think that I just, life gave me an opportunity to recognize my strengths and my natural gifts, which is communication. And communication is what brings opportunity. Because if you can communicate effectively and you can speak in a whether it's digitally or virtually or online, and you can create impact for people in that capacity, then there really isn't any organization that doesn't need better communication. There isn't any human that doesn't need coaching on how to become a better speaker or communicator. And so that I think has been the gift, is the ability to communicate, have conversations, build relationships with people quickly, and do that at scale.
Okay. So you were able to also grow your LinkedIn newsletter to more than 17,000 subscribers. So can you share with us the practical advice you would give to someone starting from scratch today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing is you got to launch one. If you want to grow it to more than, from 0 to any number, then you've got to create a newsletter. And one thing that I do is I actually teach people on how to go from ideation to creation to launch to monetization when it comes to LinkedIn newsletters. And so I facilitate those workshops quite a bit. And, LinkedIn does not make it easy, folks, to create a newsletter. In fact, I would say that if I asked 20 people if they knew the process, 19 of them or more would probably say they didn't. And so that's why I built a workshop around it, because just creating one is a process that LinkedIn does not make easy for people. Okay, so now once you have created your newsletter, how do you grow it to any number, past you being the first subscriber? Is it takes consistency. It takes understanding who your audience is. It takes good short content. People in 2026 are not investing in these like 7-page articles anymore or 7-page newsletters. So it's got to be short, quick, to the point, and high in value, because that is what is going to keep people coming back. The other thing is make it actionable and tangible for people, meaning they should be able to, if I give you 3 tips, you should be able to go do those 3 tips, and it should be able to produce what I've told you it should produce. So those are really some tips as far as, consistency, of course, making sure that it's quick and easy. And then if I had to give you any other one, is I would add it to your featured section on LinkedIn, because 24 hours a day, anybody that is on LinkedIn could find your profile and they could scroll down to your featured section and they have an opportunity to hit the subscribe button. And so I think if I could attribute, like, how did I grow to 18,000 now plus subscribers? One of the reasons is because it's featured, and that gives me opportunity to be found at any given moment.
Okay, thank you so much. So, almost as if you are a growth specialist, you know how to grow things and monetize things as well. Okay, so you help podcast hosts grow and monetize their shows, right?
Yep.
So, Jordan, what separates podcasts that become profitable from those that never do?
Yeah, I think it's all in the strategy, because I believe that any show can become profitable from the first episode if you have the right strategy. But if you don't understand the strategy or how to monetize, or if you're not willing to test different things, then there's shows that will never get to revenue. They might get to revenue from a CPM standpoint, which is cost per mile, which is typically ranges anywhere from cents to up to like $15-$16, depending on a bunch of different back end metrics, which we don't have time to go into. But as far as can a show monetize? Absolutely. And if you want me to give you a few ways that I encourage people to monetize from day one, a simple one is through their own products and services. Because here's the thing that I want your audience to understand, is that podcasts are evergreen. And what that means is that as long as the show is out, someone can search up some keywords in the show, or my name, or something about something that's in one of the pieces of content, and they can find one of the episodes that I produced in 2020. And so a guest that came on in 2020, if their website's still active and they have their products and services, they could actually get somebody in 2026 to go to their website and hire them, which is one of the ways you can monetize. So, you've got to make sure that your show notes have a call to action to where you want to drive the traffic to, but it shouldn't stop there. It also can be that you, as the host, can make a call out at the end of the episode, or in the middle of the episode, or at the beginning of the episode, wherever you feel comfortable. Because I think that people forget that when you have a podcast, it is your own platform. So there are no rules as far as what can you do and when can you advertise something, or how often can you do it. There's really no one that dictates that, unless you have some type of network agreement that dictates that. And so I always encourage people that it's all about thinking outside the box. It's being different. One of the first ways I monetized just outside of somebody, like a guest turning into a client because they found out what I did and it ended up working like that. I created sponsorship offers per episode. And I remember when, I made the offer to somebody, and I was like, wow, the first person I offered it to said yes, and so I instantly had a one episode sponsor. But it was because I decided to come up with what the deliverables would be, and I did. You obviously have to have some assets to be able to do that. But once I kind of built the model out, I found somebody that I feel it would be a value add to. Because here's the thing: that episode that they sponsored, even though it was multiple years ago, if somebody finds that episode today, they could still go to their website and they could still earn business from that episode, even multiple years after it goes out.
Okay, Jordan, thank you so much. I really hope I can be able to monetize with your tips, honestly. I'm willing to take them into action and also try to implement most of the things that you have said. So, as the co-founder of a Belgium-based tech startup, while running your own consulting company, what have you learned about leading teams across different countries and cultures?
Yeah, I've definitely learned that it is not the same to do business in Europe as it is in the US. Yeah, there's just so many nuances. And whether you think about, having a decentralized team, me and my son are the two team members of our Belgian company that are stateside, and the rest of the team, we've got about 8 team members that are in Belgium. Yeah, so communication, time zone differences, culture, languages, currency, there's all these different things that you have to think about, that I personally have to think about being a co-founder, being on the board, being a shareholder in a company over there. It's almost like an upside down world because laws are different, legislature is different, all these things. And so, and then, while managing something in the States and the podcast and speaking and all of that. Yeah. So how do I do it? Well, it's you've got to have a great partner. So for me, my wife, Natalie, is just amazing. Like when I'm traveling or doing the things that I do where it doesn't cost me a lot of energy, it's actually just a lot of fun. She does the heavy lifting and makes sure that everything else is in order. So I think having a team, a partnership, whether that's your spouse or whether that's actual employees and people that are in places and doing things when you can't be there, or maybe it's just not the best use of your time. Those are all things to have in place. And then, of course, for me, I'm always a work smarter and not harder type of person. So building the right systems and processes and having automations and workflows, things that can give you your time back, that has also been a massive help in being able to do things at a high level with a lot of capacity, and trying not to drop any balls.
Okay, Jordan, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today. This has been a very, very exciting episode. Thank you for this outstanding conversation. Thank you for sharing your journey, your insights on entrepreneurship, LinkedIn growth, leadership, and building a business with purpose. So for those that would like to connect with you and learn more about Blaze Your Own Trail Consulting and listen to your podcast as well, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I built an all-in-one tool. I mentioned it earlier that I was going to share the website link, so I'm definitely going to make sure I hold up to my end of the bargain. So if you want to connect with me, if you want to learn directly from me every single week, meet a lot of my clients and network with other entrepreneurs from around the world, this is the one website you need to go to, and also listen to the podcast. You can find it there as well. It's byotgroupcoaching.com. Anyone can create a free account, and that'll get you access to our dashboard, our member directory, our live calls, all the replays. And then we also have paid tools as you grow and scale your business that can help collapse the timeline for you to create content. We've got a CRM, we've got video features, we've got a content studio, we've got all types of tools that are specifically designed to help you create an ecosystem for your business to help you grow and scale. So thank you so much, Darlington, for having me on the show, and I hope the audience got value.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I really appreciate you coming. And thanks to my audience as well. And you all do have a wonderful day ahead. Bye, guys. Thank you, Jordan.
Have a good one.